One of the most common questions that we receive as mediators from our divorcing clients is how to tell the children, when to tell the children, where to tell the children. The topic of telling the children is one that causes a lot of couples anxiety when they are going through the divorce. Divorce is a difficult event for anybody, and especially the children. And it has been universal with all of our clients that they want to make the process as easy as they can for their children. And being able to tell your children what is happening in and why it's happening, and doing it in a way where they have permission to love each of you still is very important. There are probably many different opinions as to when to tell them, how to tell them. And I would first of all say, trust your own gut instincts. You will find that there's plenty of people that are willing to, people that have been through a divorce, people that are professionals, child psychologists, various individuals that can give you an opinion. But if that opinion does not jibe with what your gut tells you with regards to how to tell the children, always follow your gut, because nobody knows your children better than you. Generally speaking, though, there are some things that you can and should factor in when telling your children that you're going to divorce. First of all, make sure that it's a unified effort. Neither of you should individually or unilaterally be telling the children that you're going to be divorcing. It should be something that both of you do together. The reason for that is it's almost impossible to tell a child that you're divorcing without either directly or indirectly inferring some blame. If both parties are present when explaining to the children what's happening, there's a much less likelihood that there's going to be any words that will be used that would connotate any kind of blame. Why is blame such a big deal when telling the kids? I will get a lot of people that will say, I want my children to know why we're divorcing. It's important that they know the truth, whatever the truth is. Well, more than likely there's going to be two versions of truth as to why this relationship deteriorated. Both of those versions are probably accurate to some extent, and maybe both of those versions are inaccurate to some extent. One thing is for certain, it's a very personalized experience. And because each of you are going to have different opinions as to why the relationship deteriorated, if you try to explain what those different opinions are, it will be impossible to do it without blaming. Blame is the single worst thing that you can introduce into a child's mind when it comes to a divorce. The reason for that is each of you are superheroes to your children, and your children look at each of you as being individuals in their life that they can completely trust. And if anybody tries to hurt those individuals or make those individuals look bad in any way, your children are extremely loyal. Have you ever noticed that even with your own parents, you and your siblings can sit around and talk about your parents and all the bad things that they did, and there's no problem. But if somebody off the street comes in and wants to start talking about your parents, those become fighting words. That's the same way your children are going to feel about you. Well, when their superheroes have conflict with each other and blame each other for things, that fries the wiring in their brain. The best example I can think of is when the movie came out, Batman versus Superman, one of these superhero movies. It was a big deal in my family because one of my sons is a big superhero fan, and he and I have been having this argument as to which superhero is ultimately the strongest, the most elite superhero. Well, of course, we all know it's Superman, but he makes a very good argument that Batman is. So when Batman vs. Superman came out, I was excited to go see this movie, and I was excited to take him, and he was about 11 years old at the time. When the time came for us to go see that movie, he didn't want to go. And I asked him, why don't you want to go? And he said, Dad, in real life, Batman and Superman would never fight. I never forgot that, and I want you to never forget that. Your children cannot deal with any situation where their superheroes are blaming and hurting each other. So rule number 1, whenever you tell them and whatever you say, you're going to eliminate any language that would include blame. Let's talk about some possible scenarios of how you can tell them. Your children are going to mirror you. They're going to look to you to teach them how to process what this divorce is about. If you are angry and sad and depressed and pout and are paranoid, your children are going to be angry and sad and be depressed and be paranoid. If, however, you can have confidence and dignity and carry yourself with maturity, then your kids are going to carry themselves with dignity and maturity. I know that's difficult to ask of anybody, but your children will be worth it. And if you will be resolved that when you're around them, that you will make sure to keep your own emotions, the negative emotions, intact, that will be worth the effort. Now, many people say to me, how can you do that? Divorce is a sad thing. My heart is breaking. The best advice I can give is fake it till you make it. We do what we have to do whenever our children are at stake. And if you will, you'll be surprised at your ability to insulate them from the negativity of this divorce if you will try. I'm always amazed at how many times parents don't even try. Where would you tell them? Well, generally speaking, there's no magic place to tell them. However, if you were to look at the places that your children go to for their refuge, specifically their home, their bedroom, I would probably say try to tell them somewhere other than their home. They're going to remember this day like it was 9/11. They will know exactly what room they were sitting in, what they were eating, and what painting was on the wall. It will be that vivid of a recollection to them. For that purpose, maybe it won't be the best idea to tell them at home, because that's where they will be going back to as a place of refuge and safety. I've had many couples say that they've had a lot of success taking their kids to a very public place like a restaurant, and they sit down with each other, next to each other. They're very, very cautious not to send mixed signals by inadvertently scratching each other's back or holding hands. And yes, people that are going through a divorce oftentimes still do those things. Be careful not to do that, because we don't want to send mixed signals to our children. You perhaps would want to script out what's going to be said and who's going to be saying it, and then simply state, kids, Mom and Dad have something to talk to you about. We are going to be getting a divorce. That sentence will be easy. The sentence that comes after that is always where most couples make the big mistake. And that is the sentence that answers the question, but Mom, Dad, why are you getting a divorce? Remember, you're their superhero. You can fix anything. The explanation you give is very important here. Less is more. Don't try or feel obligated to give them a long explanation. I can promise you that you probably cannot adequately explain, even to an adult, why you are getting a divorce. It's a very complex thing. We have certain words that we use, like selfishness and breakdown in communication, and we grew apart, but that doesn't really tell the story of what's going on in your heart. And if you can't explain it to an adult, I can assure you, you can't explain it to a child. And more than likely, if you try, you will include language that has blame. And remember how bad that is for your children to hear. So simply respond with, honey, adult relationships are complicated. Don't worry about it. We will always be Mom and Dad, and we're going to be a better Mom and Dad than we have been. We're just not able to be a husband and wife. But your life is going to be okay. Now, if you do this right, Your kids are going to ask questions like, where are we going to live? Am I going to have the same friends? Am I going to go to the same school? Those are all very good signs. Get them focused on their own self-absorbed lives again and not focused on trying to save you and your marriage. There will likely be tears. That's okay. Do your best to control your emotions. That's why I like the idea of going to a public place. The words that you say will have meaning and they won't be forgotten. However, the actions that follow those words are going to be the most important part of this entire process. After you've gone to dinner, take your children and go do an activity. Do something that your family does. If your family golfs, go golfing. If your family bowls, go bowling. If your family goes to the park, go to the park. If they go hiking, go hiking. Don't go to a movie. Go somewhere where your kids can see each of you interact with each other. And be amazing. Remember what I said earlier, fake it till you make it. Let your kids see you laugh together. Let your kids see you be unified and united, and you can go home and cry your eyes out in the closet later. For them on that day, they need to know that the world is going to be okay, that mom and dad are not going away. The husband and wife thing is. And those actions, doing something together as a family, will save you $10,000 in therapy, and your kids will be okay.